Hello, Minnesota whiskey fanatics. It is day 17. Today I want to thank AT for the 1792 Sweet Wheat. Now, this came from the Barton Distillery, and as many people know, 1792, very old Barton, typically rye is the second grain in those. So I was a little bit surprised, first off, to see that they are doing a wheated bourbon, especially since they now own Buffalo Trace, or have owned Buffalo Trace. So seemingly Weller is in the same brand of ownership. So I want to dive in right now. They say this is 8 years old, I believe, and around 90 proof. So here we go. Really not sure what to compare this to yet. I know it was hard to find. I think it was around, I don't know, 50 bucks. I think people now are like paying secondary. I think there is a secondary market for it, which of course there is. But nevertheless, it's interesting. Smells like bourbon. You know, with these wheaters, there are a few things that a lot of people don't tell you. First and foremost, wheaters typically need age to be really good. Not 100% sure why exactly. You know, I have seen, I've tasted 2-year ryes in rye heavy bourbon, 2 years old. That's really good stuff. I've never had a young wheat whiskey or a young wheated bourbon that was really standout. So it's really just the grain, at least in my opinion. For me, I'd say bare minimum 6 years for it to be decent. That being said, I think Makers is 5-6 years old. I think they are on the low end, but nevertheless, I think they're the threshold because their product is really, really good for the age. So that would mean that a lot of these craft distillers that are putting out 2-year, 3-year wheat whiskey, for the most part, I do think it tastes a little young, especially compared to other mash bills with the same age but different grains, specifically rye. What's interesting about this is that it goes down like water on the front end, and then you get this growth on the back end. Really wasn't expecting it. Yeah, front palate, it's just watery, clear, smooth, which you expect from wheats. And now that I say that, I know exactly what to compare it to. Yeah, and then you get the heat on the back end. Huh. So I'm going to compare this to something that I think is a little off the beaten path, I guess. It's a wheat whiskey. I think that will give it away. And then we can compare it to maybe Weller and Makers 46. I think those two will be good too. Let's grab those. Let's see, Weller one. Okay. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I certainly could be. I've got way too many whiskeys, and my memories of them are usually different. But I think this is going to be a good comparison. This is the Bernheim 7-year-old wheat whiskey. New charred oak. It is a wheat whiskey, which means if it's the same as corn, 80% wheat at least. Aged in new oak. I think it's charred too. Charred oak barrels. So let's go ahead. It's also worth noting, corn whiskey, you cannot age in new char. You have to age in either used or fresh oak, no char. You know, there are some times that I shock myself. Surprisingly similar. I would say, without going further, undoubtedly the closest comparison. Bernheim has the same, it's got sweetness, but it's just watery. Not that that's a bad thing. A lot of people say wheaters are the smoothest, super, super smooth, tastes like water on the front end, and then you get the good heat going down on the back end. Oh yeah. Definitely a good comparison there. So for those who do not typically get the 1792 sweet wheat, go ahead and pick up Bernheim and you'll get some of the same characteristics and big general ideas of what the whiskey is, or the flavor profiles of what the whiskey is. Here we go, Maker's 46. This is a classic. You can find it absolutely anywhere. This one I'll tell you right now, you're going to probably get more coffee notes. A little bit more depth and flavor. Far spicier. Far spicier. Yeah, 1792 it's delicate. I mean, it's got heat on the back of your palate, but it's delicate on the front end. Definitely not the case with the Maker's 46. There's a lot more flavor there, which is not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just it isn't as light and delicate as one would expect for a wheater. And I'm guessing the same. Hey, I'm getting through this. Check this out. I'm gonna need to crack another bottle soon. This is higher proof. Same company. Also a Barton product. Oh yeah. This one's like far more candied on the front end, mid palate, back end. You get more cherry notes, more bourbon notes here. I mean, they're obviously made in different distilleries, owned by the same company. Both are good. So just to conclude, I guess, quickly, I would say that 1792 sweet wheat is very similar to a normal wheated whiskey. Delicate, light, smooth, and I know that people hate the word smooth, but it's a word and it should be used. Easy sipper, and just, if you're somebody that doesn't want to punch, I mean, for me, when I think of punches, I think 1792, I think high rye, I think rise, I think, you know, stuff like that. If you want something on the exact opposite side of the spectrum, highly recommend checking this out, or checking out the Bernheim, just because it's got similar profiles and it's more readily available. But thank you very much, and have a nice night.